The moment the barrier around Earth shattered, humanity erupted into chaos. People poured into the streets, cheering and celebrating as if they had won a war. Fireworks lit up the sky, and news outlets broadcasted images of families hugging, strangers dancing in public squares, and children pointing at the stars with wide-eyed wonder. For the first time in months, Earth felt connected to the universe again. But Ethan Cole wasn't celebrating. He stood on the roof of the Global Space Research Institute, staring at the night sky. The barrier was gone, but something about the situation gnawed at him. Ares' words echoed in his mind. Freedom comes at a cost. What did that mean? And who, or what, had placed the barrier in the first place? Mia Harper joined him moments later, her breath visible in the cold night air. She held 2 cups of coffee, handing one to Ethan without saying a word. They stood side by side for a while, watching the horizon glow faintly with the lights of the city below. "Do you think we're ready for this?" Mia asked finally, breaking the silence. Ethan took a sip of his coffee, his hands trembling slightly. "I don't know," he admitted. "We broke free, but now we're exposed. Whoever put up that barrier isn't going to let us go quietly." Mia nodded, her expression grim. "And then there's Ares. It helped us, sure, but it didn't exactly give us a warm welcome. What happens if it decides we're not worth protecting anymore?" Before Ethan could respond, alarms blared inside the Institute. Both of them rushed back inside, their hearts pounding. In the main control room, screens displayed frantic activity. Ships approaching from beyond the former barrier, unidentified vessels moving rapidly toward Earth's orbit. "It's them," Ryan Bennett said, his voice tense as he pointed to the radar display. "The ones who blocked us." Claire Dawson sat nearby, analyzing incoming data. Her fingers flew across her keyboard as she tried to decode transmissions from the alien fleet. "They're not responding to our hails," she reported. "But these readings, their technology is far beyond anything we've seen." Ethan clenched his fists. "So much for peace talks." Rachel Meyer, the archaeologist, stepped forward, her face pale but determined. "If they wanted to negotiate, they wouldn't have attacked first. We need to prepare for the worst." The team quickly sprang into action. Humanity's space defenses were minimal compared to what they were facing, but thanks to Ares, they weren't entirely defenseless. The entity had left behind fragments of its power, advanced weapons systems integrated into Earth's remaining spacecraft. These upgrades gave humanity a fighting chance, though no one knew how long they would last against such overwhelming odds. As fleets clashed in orbit, Ethan found himself aboard the Aegis, Earth's flagship vessel. It wasn't much compared to the sleek, otherworldly designs of the alien ships, but it carried humanity's hopes and Ares' blessing. The bridge buzzed with activity as officers shouted orders and pilots maneuvered to avoid enemy fire. Ryan worked furiously at an engineering console, rerouting power to keep the ship's shields intact. Sweat dripped down his forehead as explosions rocked the hull. "These guys don't play fair," he yelled over the noise. "Their weapons are tearing through our defenses like paper." "We can't hold out forever," Mia said, gripping the edge of her seat. She monitored tactical displays, trying to find weaknesses in the enemy formation. "We need more than brute force. We need strategy." Ethan turned to Claire, who was still attempting to decipher the alien's language. "Anything useful." "Yet?" She shook her head, frustration etched on her face. "Their communication patterns are too complex. I'm picking up fragments, but nothing coherent enough to use against them." Just then, Ares appeared on the bridge, not physically but as a projection made of shimmering light. Its presence silenced everyone instantly. "Your enemies approach," it said, its voice resonating through the chamber. "They will not stop until Earth is erased." Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Why do they want to destroy us? What did we do to deserve this?" Ares' glowing eyes narrowed. "They see potential where others see weakness. Your kind grows faster than any species I have encountered. To them, you are a wildfire that must be contained before it consumes everything. But we're not a threat, Ethan argued. We just want to survive, to explore, to learn. Isn't that worth sparing us? Ares tilted its head, considering his words. Survival is earned, not given. Prove your worth, and perhaps they will reconsider. Fail, and your annihilation will serve as a warning to others. With that, Ares vanished, leaving the crew to grapple with its cryptic advice. Ethan turned to his team. We fight, he said firmly. Not because we want to, but because we have to. If we can show them we're capable of defending ourselves, maybe they'll back off. The battle intensified as the alien fleet closed in. Their ships were massive, bristling with weapons that fired beams of energy powerful enough to vaporize entire cities. Earth's forces, though outnumbered and outgunned, fought with desperate determination. Pilots performed daring maneuvers, sacrificing themselves to protect civilian evacuation routes. Engineers worked miracles, patching up damaged ships mid-combat, and keeping them in the fight. On the Aegis, Ethan coordinated attacks, using every trick he'd learned from studying Ares' technology. The alien ships had weak points, tiny gaps in their armor plating where their energy cores were exposed. But hitting those spots required precision timing and teamwork. Target their core sections, Ethan shouted over the comms. Focus, all firepower on those areas. The crew responded immediately. Missiles streaked through space, homing in on the designated targets. One by one, alien ships exploded in bursts of light, their debris scattering across the void. But for every enemy vessel destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Ryan slammed his fist against the console. This isn't working! We're losing ground! Mia leaned over her screen, her eyes narrowing as she spotted something unusual. Wait! They're forming a pattern. Look at their movements. They're converging on a single point. Ethan frowned. What's at that location? Claire zoomed in on the coordinates. It's a relay station. Some kind of communication hub. Maybe they're calling for reinforcements. Realization dawned on Ethan. If we can disable that hub, we might disrupt their chain of command. Without coordination, their fleet will fall apart. That's suicide, Ryan muttered. Getting close enough to hit it means flying straight into their line of fire. Ethan met his gaze. Do we have another option? After a brief pause, Ryan sighed. No, let's do it. The Aegis changed course, hurtling toward the relay station with reckless speed. Enemy ships opened fire, their beams slicing through. Space, mere meters away. Shields flared as the ship absorbed hit after hit, but the crew refused to falter. Hold together, people! Ryan yelled, his hands moving frantically over the controls. One more hit, and we're done for! Finally, they reached the relay station. Mia locked onto the target, her finger hovering over the launch button. Ready? Now! A barrage of missiles shot forth, striking the hub with devastating force. The structure imploded in a brilliant flash, sending shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. Alien ships began drifting aimlessly, their coordination disrupted. For a moment, it seemed like victory was within reach. Then a new threat emerged. A colossal vessel appeared on the horizon, dwarfing everything else in sight. Its surface shimmered with an iridescent glow, and its shape was unlike anything they had encountered before. That's their flagship, Claire whispered, her voice trembling. It's the source of the barrier. Ethan swallowed hard. Then that's our next target. As the Aegis turned to face the behemoth, Ares reappeared, its form towering above the bridge. You cannot win this fight alone, it said. Allow me to guide you. Without waiting for a response, Ares merged with the ship's systems, flooding it with unimaginable power. Weapons charged to levels previously thought impossible, and the ship's engines roared to life. Ethan gripped the armrests of his chair as the Aegis surged forward faster than ever before. "This is insane!" Ryan shouted, his voice filled with equal parts awe and terror. "We're actually doing it!" The final confrontation was brutal. The alien flagship unleashed torrents of energy, forcing the Aegis to dodge and weave through a storm of destruction. But with Ares' help, they managed to penetrate the enemy's defenses. Missile after missile struck the flagship's core, causing massive explosions that tore through its hull. In the end, it was Ethan who delivered the killing blow. With Ares' guidance, he targeted a critical weak point, a glowing orb at the center of the ship. When the missile hit, the flagship erupted in a blinding explosion, lighting up the entire solar system. Silence fell over the battlefield. The remaining alien ships retreated, vanishing into the depths of space. For the first time in hours, the crew of the Aegis allowed themselves to breathe. "We did it," Mia said softly, tears streaming down her face. "We actually did it." Ethan slumped back in his chair, exhaustion washing over him. "Yeah," he murmured. "But at what cost?" Ari's voice echoed one last time before fading away. "Remember why you fought. Power unchecked corrupts. Use it wisely." As the crew celebrated their hard-won victory, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The barrier was gone, and Earth was free. But freedom came with responsibility. And somewhere out there, among the stars, other threats awaited. The discovery of the ancient structure beneath Antarctica left the team in awe, but it also filled them with unease. The glowing symbols on the walls pulsed faintly, as if alive, and the air inside the chamber felt heavier than before. "Ethan." Cole stood at the center of the room, staring at the pedestal that had triggered those vivid visions in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something far greater and far more dangerous than they could comprehend. Mia Harper broke the silence first. "What did you see?" she asked, her voice low but steady. She was standing a few steps behind Ethan, her eyes scanning the carvings on the walls for any clues. Ethan hesitated, trying to put the chaotic images into words. "It was overwhelming," he began. "I saw stars collapsing, planets burning, entire civilizations being wiped out, and there was this presence, this figure. It called itself Ares." "Ares?" Ryan Bennett, the team's engineer, echoed. His tone was skeptical, but there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "You're saying this thing is real? Like an actual god?" "I don't know what it is," Ethan admitted, "but it's powerful. Strong enough to destroy entire worlds, if it wanted to." Claire Dawson, the linguist, knelt near one of the glowing symbols, her fingers brushing lightly over its surface. "These inscriptions talk about Ares, too," she said. "They describe him as a warrior who fought against forces threatening galactic peace. But there's something else." She paused, her brow furrowing as she translated the text. "It mentions a key, something that can activate or summon Ares. Maybe this pedestal is it." Ethan glanced at the pedestal again. Its smooth surface was etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift slightly under his gaze. "If this is the key," he said slowly, "then we need to figure out how to use it. Carefully." Ryan crossed his arms, his expression grim. "Carefully? You mean like not accidentally summoning some cosmic war machine that might decide Earth isn't worth saving?" "Exactly," Ethan replied, though his voice lacked conviction. He knew Ryan had a point. Whatever Ares was, it wasn't human, and its motives might not align with theirs. Still, they didn't have much choice. Humanity was trapped, cut off from the stars by an impenetrable barrier. If Ares could help break through that barrier, or even fight whoever had placed it there, it was a risk they had to take. As the team debated their next move, Rachel Meyer, the archaeologist, examined the pedestal more closely. "There's writing here," she said, pointing to faint markings along the base. "It looks like instructions." Claire moved to join her, studying the text intently. "It's a sequence," she announced after a moment. "A series of symbols. We need to activate in a specific order. If we do it wrong—" She trailed off, leaving the rest unsaid. "Then we'd better get it right," Mia said firmly. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her glasses, betraying her nervousness, but her voice was resolute. With Claire guiding them, the team began the painstaking process of activating the symbols. Each one lit up as they touched it, casting a soft glow across the chamber. The air grew warmer, and the faint hum that had been present since they entered the structure grew louder, almost deafening. By the time they reached the final symbol, the tension in the room was palpable. Ethan placed his hand on the last marking, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground shook violently, throwing everyone off balance. Dust rained down from the ceiling as the walls of the chamber shimmered with energy. Bright light erupted from the pedestal, blinding them momentarily. When the light faded, a figure stood before them, a towering humanoid clad in armor forged from starlight. Its presence was overwhelming, radiating power and authority. Its eyes glowed like molten gold, and its voice resonated like thunder when it spoke. "I am Ares," it declared. "You have summoned me. Speak your plea." For a long moment, no one dared to breathe. Ethan finally stepped forward, his legs feeling like lead. We need your help," he stammered. "Earth is trapped. An energy barrier has been placed around our planet, cutting us off from the stars. We don't know who did it or why, but we can't survive like this." Ares studied him silently, its gaze piercing as if it could see into his very soul. Then it turned its attention to the others, examining each member of the team in turn. When it spoke again, its tone was neither comforting nor hostile. It was detached, clinical. "Your plight is known to me," Ares said. "The barrier was, erected by those who fear your kind. They believe your rapid growth poses a threat to galactic stability." "But we're not a threat," Mia blurted out, her frustration getting the better of her. "We're explorers, scientists, builders. All we want is to learn and grow." Ares tilted its head slightly, as if considering her words. "Intentions matter little," it replied. "Actions define civilizations. Tell me, humans, if I aid you, will you wield my power wisely, or will you bring destruction upon yourselves and others?" The question hung heavy in the air. Ethan exchanged glances with his teammates, searching for answers in their faces. Finally, he turned back to Ares. "We'll do whatever it takes to protect our world," he said. "But we won't abuse your power. We just want a chance to prove ourselves, to show that we deserve a place among the stars." Ares remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Then, without warning, it raised a hand, and the chamber was flooded with light once more. When the brightness faded, the entity was gone, leaving behind only a faint echo of its voice. "The barrier will be broken," it had said. "But beware, freedom comes at a cost." Back at McMurdo Station, the team struggled to process what had happened. They had expected resistance, danger, maybe even failure, but instead they had encountered something beyond their understanding. Ares had agreed to help, but its parting words weighed heavily on all of them. "What did it mean by a cost?" Claire asked, as they gathered in the station's makeshift briefing room. Her face was pale, her hands clutching a cup of tea tightly. "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "But whatever it is, it's probably not going to be easy." Ryan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Let's focus on what we do know. Ares said it would break the barrier. That means we're getting ready for round 2, facing whoever put it up in the first place." Mia nodded. "And we need to prepare. If Ares is willing to fight for us, then we should be ready to fight too." Over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly to gather intelligence and develop strategies. News of their discovery had leaked to global leaders, sparking both hope and panic. Some governments demanded immediate action, while others urged caution, Ethan found himself caught in the middle, fielding calls and attending meetings as humanities. Fate rested precariously in his hands. Meanwhile, strange changes began occurring around the world. Reports poured in of unusual phenomena, ships vanishing near the barrier, strange lights appearing in the sky, and unexplained surges of energy disrupting communication networks. It was as if the barrier itself was reacting to Ares's intervention, struggling to maintain its grip on Earth. One evening, as Ethan reviewed data in his quarters, Mia knocked on his door. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes betraying the toll the mission was taking on her. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" she asked quietly. Ethan sighed, setting down his tablet. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we don't have a choice. If we don't try, Earth is finished. Billions of lives depend on us." Mia nodded, though her expression remained troubled. "Just promise me one thing," she said. "Promise me we won't lose sight of who we are. No matter what happens, we stay human." Ethan smiled faintly. "I promise." As the days passed, the signs of Ares's influence became undeniable. The barrier weakened, cracks forming in its once impenetrable surface. Ships attempting to leave orbit reported encountering resistance, but for the first time they managed to push through. Hope spread across the globe, tempered by the knowledge that the battle was far from over. Finally, the day came when Ares appeared once more, not in the icy depths of Antarctica, but in the skies above Earth. Its massive form materialized amidst the clouds, visible to millions as it unleashed a wave of energy that shattered the barrier completely. The world erupted in cheers, celebrations breaking out in cities and towns everywhere. But as Ethan watched the spectacle unfold, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Ares had given them freedom, but freedom always came with responsibility and consequences. Whatever lay beyond the stars, humanity was about to face it head-on, and somewhere, deep within the cosmos, unseen forces prepared for war. Months had passed since the alliance between humanity and the Zorathians was solidified. The galaxy was quieter now, but the scars of past conflicts remained visible. Entire planets were still recovering from the devastation caused by the rogue factions that had sought to undermine Kael'vor's leadership. Yet amidst the rebuilding, there was a sense of cautious optimism. For the first time in centuries, species across the galaxy dared to dream of a future without fear. Commander Daniel Carter and his crew aboard the Odyssey had become symbols of this new era. Their bravery in standing alongside the Zorathians inspired others to follow suit. Diplomatic missions multiplied, and Earth became a hub for interstellar cooperation. Representatives from dozens of species gathered on the blue planet, sharing knowledge, resources, and ideas. Humanity's adaptability and creativity earned them respect far beyond what anyone had anticipated. But not everyone welcomed this change. In the shadows of the galaxy, remnants of Vorax's faction plotted their revenge. Though exiled, they refused to give up their vision of a Zorathian empire ruled solely by strength. They believed the alliance with humans was a betrayal of everything their species stood for, and they were determined to destroy it. One evening, as the Odyssey prepared for another voyage, Emily Ross sat in her quarters reviewing data from recent diplomatic exchanges. She noticed something unusual, a pattern of encrypted messages being sent from various points in space. At first glance, they seemed random, but when she cross-referenced them with known locations of former Zorathian outposts, a chilling picture emerged. "Commander," she said urgently, rushing to the bridge, "I think we have a problem." Daniel looked up from his console, immediately sensing the urgency in her voice. "What is it?" "These messages. They're coming from places controlled by Vorax's followers. I think they're planning something big." Ryan Keller frowned, leaning over Emily's shoulder to examine the data. "You sure about this?" Could just be noise. I'm sure, Emily insisted. Look at the timing. Every transmission coincides with movements near key supply routes. They're coordinating an attack. Laura Bennett joined the conversation, her face pale. An attack on what? Us? Earth? We don't know yet, Daniel said firmly. But if Vorak's people are involved, it won't be small. We need to warn Kael Vor. Without wasting a moment, the Odyssey set course for the Zorathian flagship. When they arrived, Kael Vor listened intently as Emily explained her findings. His expression darkened with each passing second. This cannot stand, he growled. If they strike, it will undo everything we've built. What's the plan? Daniel asked. Kael Vor hesitated before answering. We must act quickly. My fleet will patrol the most vulnerable areas. But we also need eyes on the ground, agents who can infiltrate their ranks and gather intelligence. That's where we come in, Daniel said confidently. Let us help. Our ship is smaller, faster, and harder to detect. We can get close, without raising suspicion. Kael Vor studied him for a moment before nodding. Very well, but be careful. These are dangerous foes. With their mission clear, the Odyssey slipped into enemy territory. The crew worked tirelessly, using every trick they had learned during their previous encounters with the Zorathians. Emily hacked into communication networks, uncovering details about the planned assault. Ryan modified the ship's systems to make it nearly invisible to sensors. Laura prepared medical kits, knowing injuries were inevitable. And Daniel coordinated their efforts, keeping everyone focused despite the mounting tension. Their breakthrough came when they intercepted a message revealing the target, a massive orbital station serving as a hub for trade and diplomacy. Dozens of species relied on the station for supplies and safe passage. If it fell, chaos would spread across the galaxy. We have to stop them, Emily said, her voice trembling with urgency. If that station goes down, the Alliance falls with it. Daniel nodded grimly. Then we'll hit them before they hit us. The operation was risky. The Odyssey positioned itself near the station, pretending to be a routine supply vessel. Meanwhile, the crew deployed stealth drones to monitor the attackers' approach. When the enemy ships emerged from hyperspace, the humans struck first, disabling several vessels before they could react. But the fight wasn't over. The remaining ships launched boarding parties intent on seizing control of the station. Daniel led a team onto the battlefield, fighting alongside Zorathian reinforcements sent by Kael Vor. The combat was fierce, with both sides taking heavy losses. Despite the odds, the humans and Zorathians held their ground, driven by the knowledge. That failure meant the collapse of everything they had fought for. In the heat of the battle, General Vorak himself appeared, leading the charge. His presence sent shock waves through the defenders. He moved with terrifying speed, cutting through anyone who dared stand in his way. When he reached Daniel, the two locked eyes, hatred burning in Vorak's gaze. You should have stayed out of our affairs, human, Vorak snarled, raising his weapon. Daniel didn't respond. Instead, he relied on agility and strategy, dodging Vorak's attacks and looking for weaknesses. The fight seemed impossible. Vorak was stronger, faster, and more experienced. But Daniel remembered something Kael Vor had once said. True strength lies not in brute force, but in resilience and determination. Summoning every ounce of courage, Daniel found an opening. Using a discarded piece of debris as a shield, he disarmed Vorak and delivered a decisive blow. The general stumbled, then collapsed, his body crumpling to the floor. As the dust settled, the surviving attackers fled, realizing their mission had failed. The station was safe, for now. Exhausted but victorious, the crew of the Odyssey regrouped with the Zorathians, tending to the wounded and assessing the damage. When Kael Vor arrived, he surveyed the scene with a mixture of pride and sorrow. You have done the impossible once again, he said to Daniel. Your courage saved countless lives today. It wasn't just us, Daniel replied. It was all of us. Humans, Zorathians, and everyone else who believes in this alliance. Kyle Vor nodded solemnly. Then let this be a lesson to all. Unity is our greatest weapon against division. In the weeks that followed, news of the victory spread throughout the galaxy. Vorak's defeat marked the end of the extremist faction, leaving the path clear for Kyle Vor's vision of cooperation to take root. More species joined the alliance, eager to contribute to a brighter future. Trade flourished, scientific advancements accelerated, and old rivalries began to fade. On Earth, celebrations erupted as humanity embraced its role as a leader in this new era. Schools taught lessons about the importance of teamwork and understanding. Artists created works honoring the bond between humans and Zorathians. Even skeptics like Ryan Keller found themselves inspired by the changes unfolding around them. As the Odyssey embarked on its next mission, Daniel reflected on how far they had come. From their first encounter with the Zorathians to the battles, they had fought together. Every step had brought them closer to a galaxy united by hope instead of fear. "Do you think we'll ever see a day when war becomes unnecessary?" Laura asked one evening, gazing at the stars. Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe not in our lifetime. But if we keep working toward it, maybe someday." Emily nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "And until then, we'll keep doing what we do best, proving that even the smallest spark can light up the darkest corners of the universe." Together they sailed onward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The strongest species in the galaxy had met humans, and nothing would ever be the same again. The aftermath of the battle left both humans and Zorathians weary but determined. Earth had been saved, but the cost was high. Lives were lost, ships were destroyed, and trust between allies was tested. Yet, amidst the wreckage, something remarkable had emerged, a fragile but growing bond between two vastly different species. For the first time, humanity and the Zorathians stood side by side, united not by force or fear, but by shared struggle and mutual respect. Commander Daniel Carter gathered his crew on the Odyssey for one final meeting before heading back to Earth. "We've done something extraordinary," he began. "Not just for ourselves, but for the galaxy. We've shown that cooperation is possible, even with those who seem so different from us." Emily Ross nodded, her mind still buzzing with ideas. "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. If we can keep working together, we might be able to prevent another attack like this from happening again." Ryan Keller, ever the skeptic, crossed his arms. "It's not going to be easy. There are still plenty of Zorathians who don't trust us, and probably never will." "That's true," Daniel admitted, "but change takes time. What matters is that Kyle Vor believes in this alliance. As long as he does, there's hope." Laura. Bennett added softly, "And maybe over time others will come around too. They've seen what we can do when we work together. That has to mean something." With their mission complete, the Odyssey set course for Earth. Along the way, the crew prepared reports detailing everything they had learned about the Zorathians, their strengths, their weaknesses, and their potential as allies. These documents would be crucial in convincing Earth's leaders to support the budding partnership. But as they approached their home planet, uncertainty lingered. Would humanity embrace this new relationship, or would fear drive them to reject it? When the Odyssey touched down on Earth, the crew was greeted by government officials eager to hear their story. Daniel delivered a clear message. "The Zorathians are no longer our enemies. They're our partners. Together we stopped a disaster that could have wiped out entire civilizations. This alliance is our best chance at survival and at building a better future." Some leaders were hesitant, concerned about relying on such a powerful species. Others saw the opportunity for growth and protection. After days of debate, a decision was made. Earth would officially recognize the alliance with the Zorathians and establish diplomatic relations. It was a bold step, one that marked a turning point in human history. Meanwhile, aboard the Zorathian flagship, Kelvor faced his own challenges. General Vorak and his followers continued to oppose the alliance, spreading rumors and sowing discord among the ranks. "You're making us weak!" Vorak shouted during a heated council meeting. "These humans are parasites, feeding off our strength!" Kelvor slammed his fist on the table, silencing the room. "Enough! The humans proved their worth in battle. Without them, we would have failed. Our empire cannot survive through conquest alone. We must adapt or perish." His words carried weight, but not everyone was convinced. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over at any moment. To address these issues, Kelvor called for a grand assembly of Zorathian leaders and representatives from other species under their rule. He invited the humans to attend, hoping their presence would demonstrate the benefits of unity. When the day of the assembly arrived, the chamber buzzed with anticipation. Hundreds of beings filled the space, each representing a different corner of the galaxy. At the center stood Kelvor, flanked by Daniel and Emily. The sight of a human standing alongside a Zorathian leader sent shockwaves through the crowd. Kelvor addressed the gathering in a deep, commanding voice. "For centuries, we have ruled through power and dominance. We believed strength was the only path to survival, but recent events have shown us otherwise. The humans taught us that true strength lies not in conquering others, but in working together. Today I propose a new era, one of cooperation, understanding, and peace." The room erupted into murmurs. Some cheered, inspired by the vision of unity. Others booed, unwilling to abandon old ways. Amidst the chaos, General Vorak stepped forward, his eyes blazing with defiance. "You betray our traditions," he roared. "You dishonor everything we stand for." Before anyone could react, Vorak lunged at Kelvor, drawing a weapon. Chaos broke out as guards rushed to intervene. But Daniel moved quickly, stepping between the two leaders. With surprising speed, he disarmed Vorak, holding him at bay until the guards arrived. The incident stunned the crowd. For a brief moment, all eyes turned to Daniel. Here was a human, a creature considered weak by Zorathian standards, standing tall against one of their own. Slowly, applause began to ripple through the chamber, growing louder until it filled the entire space. Kelvor placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder, his expression unreadable. "You risked your life for me," he said quietly. "Why?" "Because you've risked yours for us," Daniel replied simply. "That's what allies do." In the days that followed, Kelvor took decisive action to quell dissent within his ranks. Vorak and his followers were exiled, stripped of their titles and influence. While some grumbled about the punishment, most recognized the necessity of maintaining order. Slowly but surely, the tide began to shift. More Zorathians embraced the idea of cooperation, inspired by the example set by their leader and his human counterparts. Back on Earth, humanity adjusted to its new role in the galaxy. Diplomatic missions traveled regularly between planets, fostering relationships and sharing knowledge. Scientists like Emily worked closely with Zorathian researchers, pushing the boundaries of technology and medicine. Engineers like Ryan collaborated on projects that benefited both species, while medics like Laura helped heal wounds, both physical and cultural. But perhaps the greatest change came in the hearts of ordinary people. Stories of the Alliance spread across Earth, sparking curiosity and wonder. Books, films, and art celebrated the courage of those who dared to bridge the gap between worlds. Children dreamed of exploring the stars, no longer afraid of what lay beyond. One evening, as the Odyssey prepared for another journey into space, Daniel stood on the observation deck, gazing at the stars. Emily joined him, holding a tablet filled with notes for their next mission. "What are you thinking about?" she asked gently. "How much has changed?" Daniel replied. "A year ago, we were just explorers, wandering blindly through the unknown. Now we're part of something bigger, something that could shape the future of the galaxy." Emily smiled. "And it all started because we didn't give up, because we chose to believe in the possibility of something better." Daniel nodded. "Yeah, and now anything feels possible." As the Odyssey launched into the void, it carried with it the hopes and dreams of 2 species, and countless others, waiting to join the journey. The strongest species in the galaxy had met humans, and nothing would ever be the same again. Together, they had proven that even in a universe filled with darkness, light could shine through. And that light came, not from strength or power, but from trust, courage, and the willingness to reach out a hand across the stars. The success of Emily's treatment brought a wave of relief to both humans and Zorathians. The pathogen that had threatened to destroy entire colonies was finally under control. Teams of Zorathian ships began distributing the cure across their empire, saving countless lives. For the first time in years, hope replaced fear among the Zorathians. But despite the progress, tensions lingered. Not everyone was pleased with the alliance between humanity and the Zorathians. General Vorak, one of Kael'vor's most trusted advisors, remained deeply suspicious of the humans. He believed their involvement weakened the Zorathian Empire, making it vulnerable to outside threats. "They are not like us," he argued during a council meeting aboard the flagship. "Their presence undermines our strength. We should never have trusted them." Kael'vor listened patiently, but shook his head. "Strength is not always measured by power alone. These humans have shown us something we lacked: adaptability. Without them, we would still be fighting a losing battle against the pathogen." Vorak clenched his fists, his glowing eyes narrowing. "Adaptability? You call it weakness. They are fragile, soft creatures who rely on tricks instead of true strength. If we continue down this path, we will lose everything." The argument left Kael'vor troubled. He respected Vorak's loyalty, but couldn't ignore the results the humans had achieved. Still, he knew that dissent within his ranks could undermine the fragile peace they had built. For now, he decided to focus on stabilizing the situation, hoping that time would prove him right. Meanwhile, aboard the Odyssey, the human crew celebrated their success, but cautiously. Ryan Keller voiced what many were thinking. "This isn't over," he said during a quiet moment in the ship's mess hall. "The Zorathians aren't exactly known for their patience. What happens when the next crisis comes along?" Daniel Carter nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. This alliance is still new, and trust takes time to grow. But we've taken a big step forward. If we keep working together, maybe we can build something lasting." Emily Ross chimed in, her voice calm but firm. "We've shown them that we're not just weaklings who need protection. We've contributed something real. That has to count for something." Laura Bennett agreed, though she couldn't shake a sense of unease. "I just hope we're ready if things go wrong again. The Zorathians aren't the only ones watching. Us now." Her words proved prophetic sooner than anyone expected. A few days later, while the Odyssey was en route to Earth to deliver news of their success, an urgent message arrived from Kael'vor. His tone was grim. "Humans, you must return immediately. There has been an attack." The crew exchanged worried glances. Daniel wasted no time turning the ship around. When they reached the Zorathian flagship, they found chaos. Several smaller ships had launched a surprise assault on key Zorathian outposts, targeting supply lines and communication hubs. Casualties were high, and panic spread among the Zorathian forces. "What's going on?" Daniel asked as he met Kael'vor on the bridge. "It appears to be an inside job," Kael'vor replied, his jaw tight with anger. Some of my own people have turned against me, allying with rogue factions to destabilize the Empire. Before Daniel could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Another wave of attackers was approaching, this time heading straight for Earth. The humans froze, realizing the stakes had just become personal. "We can't let them reach Earth," Emily said urgently. "If they attack, humanity won't stand a chance." Kael'vor nodded. "Then we fight together. My fleet will engage the enemy, but I need your help. Your knowledge of strategy and technology may be the edge we need to win." Without hesitation, the Odyssey joined the battle. The human crew coordinated closely with the Zorathians, using their ingenuity to outmaneuver the attackers. Ryan worked tirelessly to boost the Odyssey's weapons systems, while Laura monitored the health of both human and Zorathian crews injured in the skirmishes. Emily analyzed enemy movements, predicting their tactics and feeding crucial information to Kael'vor's command center. The battle raged for hours, each side taking heavy losses. At one point, General Vorak confronted Daniel directly, accusing the humans of orchestrating the attack. "This is your fault," he snarled. "You brought this upon us." "That's ridiculous," Daniel shot back. "Why would we sabotage the very alliance we've worked so hard to build?" Vorak didn't answer, but his glare spoke volumes. Though he reluctantly followed Kael'vor's orders to cooperate, his distrust simmered beneath the surface. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the tide began to turn. Using a combination of human creativity and Zorathian firepower, the Allied forces managed to drive the attackers into retreat. Exhausted but victorious, the crew of the Odyssey gathered on the bridge to assess the damage. "We did it," Laura said softly, her voice tinged with disbelief. "We actually fought alongside the Zorathians, and we won." "But at what cost?" Ryan muttered, staring at the battered remains of several Zorathian ships floating in the void. Daniel turned to Kael'vor, who stood silently observing the aftermath. "Who were they?" he asked. "And why would they target Earth?" Kael'vor sighed heavily. "They were extremists within my own ranks. Those who believe our alliance with humanity is a mistake. They sought to weaken me and provoke a war between our species." "Why Earth?" Daniel pressed. "To send a message," Kael'vor admitted. "To show others that even the strongest species in the galaxy cannot protect its allies forever." The weight of his words hung in the air. Humanity had narrowly escaped disaster, but the threat wasn't over. The attack had exposed cracks in the Zorathian Empire, cracks that could widen if left unchecked. As the days passed, efforts shifted toward rebuilding and strengthening ties between humans and Zorathians. Kael'vor made a bold decision. He disbanded the extremist faction responsible for the attack, stripping them of their rank and resources. It was a risky move, one that angered some of his followers, but Kael'vor stood firm. "Change is painful," he told his people, "but it is necessary if we are to survive." For their part, the humans continued to prove their value. Emily collaborated with Zorathian scientists to develop new technologies, while Laura trained medics in advanced healing techniques. Even Ryan found himself earning respect from the Zorathians, his engineering skills helping repair damaged ships and fortify defenses. Yet not everyone shared this newfound camaraderie. General Vorak remained a vocal critic of the alliance, warning that humanity's influence would lead to the downfall of the Zorathian Empire. His warnings gained traction among certain factions, creating tension within the leadership. One evening, as the Odyssey prepared to depart once more, Daniel approached Kael'vor privately. "What happens now?" he asked. "Can you hold your people together?" "I must," Kael'vor replied. "For too long we have ruled through fear and force. Perhaps it is time to rule through cooperation and trust." Daniel nodded. "We'll do everything we can to support you, but remember, trust works both ways. If you want us to stand by you, you have to stand by us too." Kael'vor extended a massive hand, which Daniel shook firmly. "Agreed. Together, we will face whatever comes next. As the Odyssey departed, the humans reflected on how far they had come. They had faced betrayal, violence, and doubt, but they had also forged bonds stronger than anyone had imagined. The strongest species in the galaxy had met humans, and though challenges remained, the seeds of unity had been planted. The Odyssey drifted through space, its crew quiet but restless. After their encounter with the Zorathians, the humans were left with more questions than answers. Vor had shown interest in humanity, even going so far as to intervene against a rogue faction within his own ranks. But what did that mean for Earth? Were the Zorathians truly willing to change, or was this just a temporary truce? Commander Daniel Carter paced the bridge, his mind racing. He knew they couldn't ignore the opportunity before them. If humanity could gain the trust of the Zorathians, it might open doors to alliances and protection. But earning that trust wouldn't be easy. The Zorathians valued strength above all else, and humans were far from the strongest species in the galaxy. Lieutenant Emily Ross sat at her station, reviewing data from their previous visit to the Zorathian flagship. She had spent hours studying their technology, their culture, and their history. One thing stood out to her. The Zorathians were facing a problem they couldn't solve alone. Entire colonies across their empire were dying off due to an unknown illness. Their best scientists and doctors had failed to find a cure. Emily believed this was humanity's chance to prove its worth. "Commander," she said, approaching Daniel, "I think I know how we can help the Zorathians, and maybe earn their respect in the process." Daniel turned to her, his brow furrowing. "Go on." "Their colonies are suffering from some kind of disease," Emily explained. "It's spreading quickly and they don't know how to stop it. If we can figure out the cause and develop a solution, it would show them that humans have something valuable to offer." Ryan Keller, who was nearby, snorted. "And what if we fail? What if we make things worse? They'll see us as weak and useless." "We won't fail," Emily replied firmly. "We have skills and knowledge they don't. We think differently. That's our advantage." Daniel considered her words. It was risky, but he agreed it was worth trying. "All right, let's propose this to Vor. If he agrees, we'll send a joint team to investigate." When the Odyssey returned to the Zorathian flagship, Vor listened carefully to their proposal. At first, he seemed skeptical. "You believe you can succeed where my people have failed?" he asked, his tone neutral. "We believe we can try," Daniel answered. "Our methods are different from yours. Sometimes a fresh perspective is all it takes to solve a problem." Vor studied him for a moment before nodding. "Very well. You will work alongside my scientists. But know this: failure will not be tolerated." With that, a team of humans and Zorathians set out for one of the affected colonies. The journey took several days, during which tensions ran high. The Zorathians viewed the humans with suspicion, while the humans struggled to adapt to the aliens' imposing presence. Despite the challenges, Emily threw herself into the work, determined to make progress. The colony was in ruins when they arrived. Buildings lay abandoned, streets deserted. The few survivors were sickly, their bodies weakened by the mysterious illness. Laura Bennett immediately began treating patients using both human and Zorathian medical techniques. Meanwhile, Emily worked with the Zorathian scientists to analyze samples and identify the cause of the outbreak. What they discovered shocked everyone. The illness wasn't natural, it was artificial. Someone had engineered the pathogen deliberately, creating a weapon designed to destabilize the Zorathian Empire. The revelation sent shockwaves through the team. Who would do such a thing? And why? "This changes everything," Vor said grimly when informed of the findings. "If someone created this disease, they meant to weaken us, to destroy us." Emily nodded. "Whoever it is, they're counting on chaos to spread. They want your people divided and vulnerable." Daniel stepped forward. This is bigger than just the Zorathians. If this pathogen spreads beyond your borders, it could threaten other species, including humans. We need to work together to stop it." For the first time, Kyle Vor looked uncertain. His empire was built on strength and dominance, but this threat required cooperation, not conquest. He glanced at the humans, seeing not weakness, but determination. "Very well," he said finally. "We will unite our efforts. Together we will find a solution." As the investigation continued, bonds began to form between the humans and Zorathians. Laura worked tirelessly alongside Vera Nix, the fierce female warrior who had once distrusted the humans. Though their methods clashed, they found common ground in their desire to save lives. Ryan, despite his initial reluctance, impressed the Zorathians with his technical expertise, repairing damaged equipment and improving communication systems. Daniel found himself growing closer to Kyle Vor. The two leaders spent hours discussing strategies and philosophies, learning from each other. Daniel admired Kyle Vor's sense of duty to his people, while Kyle Vor respected Daniel's courage and resourcefulness. But not everyone supported the alliance. Some Zorathians, like General Vorak, saw the humans as a liability. "They are too fragile, too soft," Vorak argued. "Working with them makes us weaker, not stronger." "They bring strengths we lack," Kyle Vor countered. "Creativity, adaptability. These are qualities we need if we are to survive." Back on the Odyssey, the crew reflected on how much had changed since their first meeting with the Zorathians. "Do you think they'll really change?" Laura asked one evening. "Or is this just temporary?" "I don't know," Daniel admitted, "but I do know that we've planted a seed. Whether it grows depends on both sides." Emily smiled faintly. "Seeds take time to grow. But if we keep nurturing this relationship, maybe, just maybe, we can create something lasting." Their optimism was tested when disaster struck. While analyzing the pathogen, one of the labs suffered a catastrophic malfunction. Toxic fumes filled the air, forcing everyone to evacuate. Several Zorathians were injured, including Vera Nix, who collapsed from exposure to the chemicals. Laura sprang into action, rushing to treat the wounded. She worked side by side with the Zorathian medics, combining human medicine with alien techniques to stabilize the victims. Her quick thinking saved Vera Nix's life, earning her deep gratitude from the usually hostile warrior. "You risked yourself for me," Vera Nix said later, her voice gruff but sincere. "Why?" "Because that's what we do," Laura replied simply. "We help each other, no matter who or what you are." The incident brought the team closer together, but it also highlighted the dangers they faced. Whoever had created the pathogen was still out there, watching and waiting. Time was running out. Finally, after weeks of relentless effort, Emily made a breakthrough. She discovered a way to neutralize the pathogen, developing a treatment that could halt its effects. The news sparked hope among the humans and Zorathians alike. "This is it," Emily told Daniel, her eyes shining with excitement. "If we can distribute this treatment to the affected colonies, we can stop the disease from spreading." Kyle Vor agreed, ordering his fleet to begin mass-producing the treatment. For the first time in years, the Zorathians felt a glimmer of hope. Their empire, once on the brink of collapse, now had a fighting chance. As the mission drew to a close, Daniel gathered his team for a final debriefing. "We've done something incredible here," he said. "Not just for the Zorathians, but for ourselves. We've proven that humanity has something to offer the galaxy." "But the hard part isn't over," Ryan added. "There's still whoever created this pathogen. They won't stop just because we've found a cure." "No, they won't," Daniel acknowledged. "But we've taken the first step toward unity. If humans and Zorathians can work together, maybe others will follow." When the Odyssey prepared to leave, Kyle Vor came to see them off. "You have earned my respect, humans," he said. "You are not like any species I have encountered before. Perhaps that is a good thing." "Perhaps it is," Daniel replied with a smile. "Thank you for trusting us, Vor. Let's keep building on what we've started." As the Odyssey disappeared into the stars, the humans reflected on how much had changed. They had faced fear, doubt, and danger, but they had also found friendship, understanding, and hope. The strongest species in the galaxy had met humans, and nothing would ever be the same again.